Hot Topic and welcome to Her Network on Zingo TV channel 251. Please remember to download both the BarnBurner and Zingo TV apps on their respective store on iOS and Android devices. And while you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV Sticks, Roku, Roku Sticks, also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. In episode 3, we talked about the cinema evolution as a business, and we ended on how Hollywood went into many obstacles along the way. And one of them is the invention of television. So today our title is Cable Network as a Sales Platform, where we will focus on different subtitles like the following: Hollywood attempts to control television, stages of developing the business model, how Hollywood faced television, how cinema faced VHS, DVDs, and streaming platforms. So, if we have time, we will discuss the rising conflict between Hollywood and the new competitor, Netflix. During the golden age of Hollywood, during the 30s, the sudden technological changes happened, and a series of high-profile experimental broadcasts made it clear that sometimes television would be broadcasted directly into people's home. So, how Hollywood attempts to control television. In 1939, a few stations with experimental licenses began broadcasting things like baseball games, early news programs in New York, though television sets were expensive and programming limited. Then, after World War II ended, the social changes turned a trickle of demand for television into a tidal wave. So people needed television more than ever after World War II. And by 1958, 4 major TV networks began broadcasting a full primetime schedule 7 nights a week. And major Hollywood studios tried to purchase interest in TV stations. They succeeded at first, gaining majority control of TV studios. However, this possession didn't last long because in the same year, federal law allowed the government to deny TV licenses to companies that had been convicted of engaging in monopolistic activities. So that's how Hollywood big studios lost the opportunity of owning the TV broadcasting. Let's talk about the stages of developing the business model. Before the FinCEN rule was established in 1977, the profit went all to the network. FinCEN is also known as the Financial Interest and Syndication Rule. With this rule, they prevent 3 major networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, from acquiring an interest in programs brought to them by outsiders. So they forbid those 3 networks from participating in what's called the aftermarket for the TV series and else. Up until 1993, companies in terms of television could not own a primetime due to an FCC rule called FinCEN. There was a lot of activities among independent production companies that would go out and produce primetime. And after 1995, FinCEN went away. Now advertisers have more direct access to the production, so they pay directly to the organization that produce as well distribute. Now, companies like Time Warner could own ad interest in television shows and primetime, and that changed a lot of things. It changed the way the entertainment business works. Some of the networks now can own a piece of the shows, but they need independent production companies. And usually in June every year, networks look for new scripts to put on the air, And that process goes from June till end of August, so scripts are bought, and a network might buy 40 scripts, and toward the winter, scripts are turned into pilots. Their production starts in the summer, and they go out in the fall. Consequently, networks don't own typical shows that run. They buy them from production companies. And in summary, production companies own the copyrights of the shows and they license the show to television networks. It was one of the different ways used by major studios to survive the rise of television. Let's move to how cinema faced television. It was hard for studios to convince people to look away from a cheap medium that shows something for free and movies for free while they are sitting in their homes. So the effect of home viewing was dramatic on cinema in the US, with weekly attendance dropping some 85% between 1946 and 1964. However, the television wasn't able at the end to kill the cinema, as many voices argued at that time. Hollywood survived by cutting production from around 500 to 150 films a year to finance increasingly spectacular and expensive releases. It started with the lavish historical epics of Ben-Hur and Lawrence of Arabia and continued with the multi-billion-dollar shared universes of Star Wars and Marvel Avengers in the current era. In addition, in the early 1960s, a new agreement had been settled between major studios and television networks, which provides Hollywood the opportunity to show a feature film on the TV channels, which also provides an additional amount of money for Hollywood. A very important thing to talk about now is how cinema faced VHS, DVDs, and streaming platforms. In the same way Hollywood was able to survive facing new competitors over the years, in the early 1980s, on the start of the VHS home video market, Hollywood regulated a business model called release window, which is a strategy to keep different instances of a movie from competing with each other, allowing the movie to take advantage of different markets, cinema, home video, and TV, at different times. At first, the window between a movie theatrical release and its home video release was usually at least 6 months. However, when the movies were released on video, they were not made available to the general public. Instead, they were sold to video rental stores. But under the pressure of the audience and by the development of new mediums like DVDs, these windows decreased. And today, an excess of movies were released on DVD after 12 to 16 weeks after the theatrical premiere. Later, with the rise of the streaming platforms, the rules stayed the same. And no one tried to break this tradition until the appearance of Netflix as a new mogul who threatened the business industry. Want to know more about the frightening rise of Netflix? Listen carefully. When Mark Randolph and Reed Hastings founded Netflix on August 29, 1997 in Scotts Valley, they were thinking about a new approach for DVDs rental. Hastings invested $2.5 million in startup cash for Netflix, as Randolph admired the emerging e-commerce company Amazon and wanted to find a large category of portable items to sell over the internet using a similar model. Later, on April 14, 1998, Netflix was launched as the world's first online DVD rental store, with only 30 employees and 900 titles available. In September 1999, Netflix began offering an online subscription service through the internet and then dropped the single rental model in early 2000. Subscribers chose movies and television titles from Netflix website. The shows were then mailed to the customers in, in the form of DVDs, along with prepaid return envelopes. And the number of DVDs in their possession at any one time was limited according to their subscription plan. By that time, Netflix had 10,000 of movies titles in its catalog. Later in 2005, data speeds and like they were asking users to download an entire movie online, when it became possible, Netflix started working on Netflix Box, which was supposed to allow the users to download movies overnight, then watch the next day. However, the starting of YouTube in the same year led Netflix to stop the new launch and pivot to a service that would allow consumers to stream movies remotely, like at the same time instead of downloading them. So Netflix was the first online streaming service. It took 2 additional years before Netflix introduced their video on demand, the VOD, via the internet. In parallel, the company reaches milestones and new chapter with the delivery of 1 billion DVDs. But since the company income from DVD started declining while the income of the streaming online was rising steadily, so it's something really interesting. Do you know that they started to offer streaming content for free to its subscribers in 2007? But at that time, Netflix wasn't able to offer more than about 1,000 movies and TV shows online. It is around 1% in comparison of the 100,000 different DVD titles they ran. Yet, as the popularity kept growing, the number of titles available for streaming was increasing as well and had reached 12,000 movies and shows in June 2009. By 2010, Netflix streaming business had grown so quickly that within months the company became the largest source of internet streaming traffic in North America. In the next few years, Netflix kept growing. In September 2014, the company had subscribers in over 40 countries, with intentions of expanding their services in unreached countries. Later, in October 2018, Netflix customer base reached 135 million in almost every country in the world, confirming its rank as by far the world's largest online subscription video service. An important thing to mention is that Netflix is also an original content producer. So by the end of 2018, Netflix has 1,000 original production available on its service, spending around $30 billion on production. Yet before their big move into the investment on production, Netflix had an early experience with originals through a production unit called Red Envelope Entertainment. This unit worked from 2005 on producing, then distributing and licensing several movies. However, it was closed in 2008 since Netflix didn't want to compete with the partner studios and to focus on their core business. By 2011, Netflix was 4 years into its web-based streaming and had amassed 20 million streaming subscribers. That's when the chief content officer, Ted Sarandos, decided to move into the production again. He paid a lot of money, a reported $100 million, to buy the domestic rights of House of Cards, a virtually unknown British miniseries that had run in 1990. 2 years later, the show was released and became the first Netflix original, having great success and opening a Pandora's box of changes. Besides that, Netflix gave the producers a commitment for 2 full seasons without asking for a pilot or a test marketing. They bet on the product without insisting on the creative control that comes with a traditional TV deal, which like Something wasn't done before. Also, it was the first binge-watch series since all the episodes were released at once. The majority of network executives complained that the $50 million spent by Netflix on one season were impossible to them. Besides, non-streaming TV viewing in the US fell about 3% in 2018 in terms of hours viewed, and half of that fall was accounted to Netflix. In the next few years, Netflix will turn to the new mogul in the entertainment industry, spread panic into the competitors, companies, and studios. Nevertheless, the real problem for the streaming giant didn't start until they decided to compete with their longtime partners, Hollywood studios, by their decision to produce not only their own series but also their own movies. We'll dig into the rising conflict between Hollywood and Netflix. By 2015, Netflix bought the worldwide distribution rights of the feature film Beasts of No Nation for around $12 million. It was the first time for Netflix to collaborate in a feature film production. And for the first time in history, the film was released at the same time in selected theaters and online. Through Netflix subscription VOD service also, which violate the traditional rule of the 90 days release window of exclusivity to theaters and open the eyes of the coming conflict. Just a second. Okay. So we will continue in the upcoming episode to talk about Netflix through creative's eyes. We are towards the end of our show. If you have any questions, send them to our direct message on Instagram and follow us on Instagram, The Hot Topic Show. Thanks so much for watching. Before we end, I have to tell you this show can also be heard on the BarnBurner Radio Network on its 122 platform. The Her Network is part of the BarnBurner Media Network. Please check out barnburner.ca for all the news and programming. Thank you so